So, you're in the process of sculpting a realistic human head, but there's just something not quite right. You think maybe the eyes are too big? Nah. Maybe his head is too bold? Nah, it can't be that. Ah, silly you. You forgot to texture it. So perhaps I could help you out a bit. Hey, I'm not an expert, but I do know when going about texturing a model, especially these more realistic human characters, I've found that there's definitely a best way to do it. But within this workflow, there's a lot of room for obviously creative freedom, and lots of this texturing process comes to just tweaking very fine values and seeing what you like and find the most appealing. So I'll show you the bones, and then if you're following along you can fill those in with some of your own pizzazz. So I'm assuming that you guys know about, material nodes and the basics of texturing, but just in case you don't, I'll go through it extremely quickly just so that we're all acquainted. So we go to the shading tab, we select our guy, then over here we press new. Now we will be met with this principled BSDF node and this material output node. First we're going to do the color for this guy. So what we're going to do is press Shift A, go to texture, find image texture, there we go, put the color to base color. He's going to turn black because we've got no information going, so I'm going to create new image texture, name it whatever you want. I'm going to just name it color. Cool. Mine is 4K, and then just press OK. There we go. Done and dusted. Okay, so starting off with the color map, we've just put in a base tone, a base skin tone that we can work off of to create interest and variation. Most faces, they're split up into three main sections. So we've got the bottom of the face up to the bottom of the nose, then we've got the mid face, which is the bottom of the nose to the eyebrows, and then obviously the upper face, which is the forehead area. So who would have thought there are three face areas? But what's interesting is that each of these three sections kind of have a distinct hue, a distinct color. When we look at the lower face, we can see that it's got somewhat of a greeny bluey tinge, and this is a result of the hair that grows there. Even in women it's there, it's just not as obvious. So when you're colouring the bottom of the head, this stubble texture can be portrayed with more bluey and greeny hues attached. Now on the mid-face area, working on the eyes, usually people have more pinkish, reddish colours around the eyes and around the T region. You may notice me also drawing lines of lighter colour. This is just to accentuate the wrinkles and to highlight the age of this character. For lots of these models, you don't actually need to colour as much as you might think. I mean, obviously you can, but it has diminishing return. The main thing you need to focus on to get your models looking top class is to get it right and detailed in the sculpting phase. Then all this texturing will just add and complement the existing geometry, and obviously make the model go from looking more like a statue to an actual human. But at least for the color stage, it's usually a lot simpler than you might first think. Obviously, if this model is going to be looked at close up, and like if it's a movie asset or a cinematic asset, then you probably need to spend more time and just really get all the detail you can. But usually if it's a personal project, or if it's not something that's going to be looked at very closely, then usually you don't need to go as detailed as what you might think. So if you want to check out how I went about sculpting this model, then check out the first video in this series. Link at the top right of the screen, or the links in the description. But if you are going to make something insanely detailed, better be the eyes. You know, they say the eyes are the window to the soul, and it's usually the first thing people look at, especially with these human models. So getting the eyes and around the eyes to look correct is one of your more important tasks. I've noticed, especially on, you know, people who are getting along in age, you know, a bit on the older side, they have these dark spots, you know, under the brow and on the inside of the eyelid. So I was emulating that here. Some people think it's a sign of tiredness. You know, I haven't read the medical literature on it, so it's just hearsay for me, but make sure to get that in there. So this character I'm doing is Constantine the Great. I did talk about him at length in my other video, but yeah, this guy was a Roman emperor, and the first to kind of install Christianity into the Roman Empire. I'm depicting him, you know, at his older years, his riper years, because I just find like doing wrinkles and sculpting wrinkles like a cool challenge, so this was my first attempt. Alright, so I've got some colour on there. It's looking definitely better. It's looking more like a person. So now for the second step. Alright, so we got our boy Constantine over here. He's looking a lot better. You know, he's got some colour on him. He's starting to look more believable, but he's just not quite there yet. He looks like a plastic sculpture with some painting on it, but we want him to look like an actual creature with flesh and blood and bones and all of that. So there's a very quick remedy for this. So let's go to the shading tab. There he is. And this is our node setup for now. So we've got the color map, and then it's connected to the base color. That's it. But the thing that we can do to make him look 10 times better is to go to the subsurface tab and then select random walk skin, and then with the weight I put mine to around 690, 700, somewhere around there. And then these settings down here all depend on the size of your actual model. So I don't know the exact dimensions, but play around with these settings and then see what you like. I would recommend to keep this lowest setting to 0.8 to give the best results. And then this, as you can see, already makes him look 10 times better, 10 times more like a actual creature with flesh and blood.
You know, if you're enjoying the video, if you're learning something, then don't be cheeky. You know, click the like button, subscribe, all of that.
Okay, so next on the agenda, on this principal BSDF node, what we need to do is we need to make different maps for different important parameters that will make our Constantine here look even more realistic. So first things first, we're going to bake a normal map and a displacement map, and we're going to use these two bakes from the high poly sculpt to generate roughness maps, specular maps, transmission maps, all the maps you can think of. And once we've done this, it's gonna really start coming together. So, some of you watching this may be among the subcategory of viewers known as 3D noobs. And you might be wondering to yourself, what even is baking? Why are we even making these normal maps and displacement maps? What do they even do? And, you know, good question. Good questions. Normal maps and displacement maps are basically a way of displaying the high frequency details that you added in the sculpting stage and displaying it as a texture. This is useful because computers find it difficult to render very dense models. So this model I have, if I was to put it onto its max resolution, it would be around 10 million polygons or something, and that's very calculation intensive for your computer, and it will take a long time, and you know, it might fry your CPU. So a better way is obviously to make these normal maps, because displaying the detail as a texture is much less calculation intensive than displaying your full detailed model. So now let's get into how we make them. Let's make a few textures. So Shift A, go to texture, image texture, gonna click new, 4K is fine, gonna title this one norm for normal map, and then we don't have to worry about these settings, then we press OK. Now we're going to make another image texture, over here. We're going to press new. We're going to name it disp for displacement. Okay, we've got these two textures that we're going to make the normal map and displacement map. So we're going to press Control A again. We're going to search for normal map node. Then we're going to press Shift A again. We're going to search bump node. Then we're going to connect them. So the normal map, we're going to go color to color. We're going to go normal to normal. Then we're going to go normal to normal. And with the displacement map, we're going to go color to height on the bump. Okay, we've got it all set up now. Now what we need to do is we need to go into the modifiers tab, and we need to look if we've got any additional modifiers to the multi-res. We need to disable them in the viewport. So if they're enabled, just press the little TV icon and then they will be disabled in the viewport. So with this multi-res, we're gonna crank it up. So it's on 1 now. We're gonna crank it up to a mid-range. So depending on how many total subdivisions you have, you're gonna wanna crank it up to the mid-range. So -6, so I'm gonna put it to 3, 2, 3 is fine. And we're gonna click on the normal map texture. Then we're gonna go up here to bake. By default, this bake from multi-res clicker should be off. Just click it and then go to normals, because we're gonna bake the normal map. Then just press bake. Once it's baked, it should have taken a few minutes. We can see it over here, and if we zoom in, we can see we've got all this lovely high frequency detail that we sculpted before, all the pores and all the wrinkles and that. So now for the displacement, we're going to click on the displacement texture we have, then we're going to go back to the modifiers. So for the displacement, we're going to use it more to map the bigger details. So the bigger wrinkles, the dips in the eyes, the dips in the nose, the mouth, and it's just gonna help support these bigger deep creases. We're gonna put it from 3 down to 0 or 1. You can test out both and see which suits you, which looks best. So got it down to 1. We're going to go back to the render tab, and we're going to go to the bake part, and then we're going to go from normals to displacement. Then we're going to press bake, and in a few minutes we should get our result. Alright, now that's the baking part done. Let's see how we generate all the other various maps from what we've baked here. Okay, so this is more or less the finished node setup. Very simple, as you can see. And I'm just going to go through all the maps that we haven't gone through already. So, starting with the roughness map, let's take a closer look. Okay, so if we see here, the roughness map looks eerily similar to the displacement map. Well, that's because it is the displacement map. So what I did was I made a new texture. I called it the roughness map. Then I baked the displacement on it, and then I made some minor adjustments. So if we can see here, we've got some lighter bits and some darker bits. The lighter bits in this case signify smooth surfaces, and then the dark bits signify rough surfaces. for the bits I wanted smoother, I just came over here, I put the brush to white, I lowered the strength a bit, and then I just drew on, probably even less strength. And you want to do it with not much strength because you want to keep the detail underneath. As you can see here, I'm drawing, but it's making the whole thing lighter and whilst keeping the detail. I'll do it in the rendered view. I'll bring up the strength to make it more obvious. And we can see here, I'm drawing white and then it's displaying it as a smoother surface. The only thing to keep in mind is that when you bake the displacement map onto the roughness map and then use the displacement map as the roughness map, your smooth and roughness might be inverted. So what I mean by this is that when it's baked, it makes the darker areas smooth and then the lighter areas rough, but we want it the other way. We want inside the crevices of each fold of skin and each pore to be rough, but between each wrinkle and each pore we want to be smooth. So a quick remedy is just to add a color ramp. So let's just add one now to show you. Color ramp, and then connect it as this one is, but you see the dark is on this side on the left and then the light is on the right. What you're going to do is you're just going to invert it. So now the white is on the left and the black is on the right, and then this should solve the problem. Now for the second map we're going to do is the IOR level. This is just to control where the tint is. So again, let's click on this, take a closer look at it. Here we can see that same story. We just put the displacement map onto the tint and then called it a day. The only addition we made was we added a color ramp and then put the colors quite close together so we get a nice contrast. If we can see here, there's a big difference between the dark spots and the white spots. This is just to make the tint more obvious. And then with that, those are all the maps we need, and I've shown you the color ramps on how we can control them, and yeah. And with this extremely simple setup, as we saw before, we can get pretty okay results. If you want to spice it up a bit, feel free, just add a bunch of nodes and see what happens. Watch a few YouTube tutorials on this and that, and I'm sure it'll make it look better. But this is just a demonstration on how just a few simple textures can make your 3D model go from looking like a plastic sculpture into an actual person with skin, flesh, blood, all of that.